Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our session this morning about the family ministry, its challenges, hopes, and participation in mission. I am Chinka Bising de Sarmiento, and I will be with you with our concurrent session for this morning. I'm a family life educator, and I am a media and youth ministry in our parish. I'm also a volunteer for the Live Life pillar of the Live Christ, Share Christ mission, and a member of the Missionary Families of Christ community. Let us begin by talking about the family and God's plan and design. The good news of divine love is to be proclaimed to all those personally living this basic human experience of couples and of a communion open to the gift of children, which is the family community. This is according to the pastoral challenges to the family in the context of evangelization, a paper produced in the Vatican in 2013 during the Synod of Bishops. What does this tell us? If we play around with the words, for me, it means that the family is a community where God's love is proclaimed through the personal experience of the couple and shared with God's love, multiplied in the gift of their children. So let's break this down into several truths about the family. First, the family is brought about by love, a love that is real and true, that comes from the Father himself and not of this world. A love that is in itself a beautiful mystery because it reflects that of God for man, love of God for man, the love of Christ for his bride, who is the church. And who is the church? We are the church. The church is not just the priests, not just the religious, not just our pastoral leaders. The church is all of us. And Christ is married to his church, to all of us. And Christ's love for all of us is beautiful. It is mysterious. It is sacrificial. Because of all that, it is life-giving. That is the truth about the family. The first and foremost, the basic truth about the family. It is about this kind of love. A love that is precious, a love that is real, a love that is sincere, that can never be quantified in the way the world defines love. If it is not founded on God's definition of love, then it is not real and true in its sense. Why is God the standard for love? Because love came from God. God is the source of love. Who are we as human beings to redefine it? So that is the first and basic truth about the family. Next, this love is experienced by the couple, where it is shared, where it is realized, and where it is multiplied. So this love is first felt by the couple. It is shared by the couple to one another. It is realized in all of the challenges that they go through, and it is multiplied because it does not remain stagnant. For it to be lasting, for it to last through the years, it has to grow. It has to progress. It's not enough that the kind of love and the amount of love that you have from the beginning, that's not enough to sustain. It has to grow. It has to multiply, and it will happen through the years. The love that sparks between man and woman grows and is naturally ordered to form an intimate communion with one another. Naturally ordered. This is how God created it in its purest sense, for this love to begin to spark between the man and woman and to grow so that they can form an intimate communion with one another. It starts with attraction, perhaps. It starts with the kilig factor in the beginning, but it has to grow. It doesn't remain that way. And when it grows, it is naturally ordered towards that intimate communion with one another. This love is as God's love to us sacrificial, self-giving. It is not just selfish. It is not based on what I will get from this relationship. That's why it has to grow. It has to develop. It will not last if it stays in its initial stages of simply attraction or physical attraction. It goes beyond that. This love is also sealed in front of God and others who stand as witness. Because if we were to compare it to something being baked in the oven, I like to cook, my husband and I, we love to cook. And if we are to compare it to something that we are baking in the oven, it needs to have the right amount of attention to nurture it and a most special kind of grace that only God blesses us with through his sacraments. You cannot just leave something baking in the oven and then just come back expecting that it will be perfectly baked. You have to watch it. You have to pay attention. It has to have the right temperature. It has to have the right amount of ingredients, or else it will not be the kind of baked dish that it's supposed to be. No, you cannot get the exact the vision that you have. You cannot achieve the vision that you have for this dish if you don't pay attention to it. That's why this love is not just handed to you. You have to experience it. You have to make it grow. You have to enrich it. And God will bless that love. He doesn't just give you that love and then leave you to it. He blesses that love through that marriage, through the growth of that couple in love with one another, and through the grace of his sacraments. That is very important. The grace that we receive through his sacraments. And that is why this love that is experienced by the couple is a mystery. It is the same mystery that Christ has for his church, that couples remain married for a long time. This is what I was saying a while ago. It is only by God's grace that two individuals who come from different backgrounds and upbringing can stay together. It is only if they present this love to God and put him at the center of their union that they will be able to experience the natural course of this love. And this love is towards one another, loving, lasting, and life-giving. Why do couples always have the problem nowadays of staying married to their spouse? Most likely it's because they do not put God at the center of their union. If from the beginning God was there in the discernment process, in the preparation for the marriage vocation, if God was there from the very beginning, it will not be hard for us to keep him at the center of this union. So that is the secret to a successful marriage, that kind of love that God has and which will only be achieved if he is at the center of that union. The kind of love that is loving, self-giving, lasting, and life-giving. Another truth is life is conceived out of this love. The covenant of love that the couple commits to in front of God is blessed by none other than him. It is blessed because of his grace. And the love of the couple for one another is sealed. It is sealed, but it is also from the beginning freely given and consciously chosen. So how can it become freely given and consciously chosen? There has to be a discernment process where God is already present from the beginning. Marriage preparation doesn't start when the wife says, I yes. When the man says, will you marry me? No, it doesn't start there. Marriage preparation doesn't start there. Marriage preparation starts from the very beginning, in the upbringing of each person and in the active discernment for the vocation of married life. Therefore, they also willingly accept the plan of God for their marriage and for their family life, because there is an active discernment process and prayer is always at the center of that marriage preparation process. It will not be hard for the couple to enter into that marriage knowing very well in mind that God has a plan for that marriage and for their family life. They do not enter into that union just because they have their own plans for it. but they enter knowing very well that God has a plan for them. And at this point, it is important for us to see the value of love that came from God, that is shared by the couple. Okay, love from God shared by the couple, of the blessing of God's grace as the couple commits to one another, the blessing, the love, the blessing, the life that they promise to share together in marital intimacy, okay, the life, that marital embrace that they share together in marital intimacy, and the perfect communion that they have with one another as willed by God Himself. How beautiful this truth, that because of this love that came from God and the blessing of God's grace in that union, the couple will share that life together in marital intimacy and celebrate it in perfect communion because it was willed by God from the very beginning. I am mind blown by these truths. Are you? If only we knew these truths from the very beginning. And another truth is that love is multiplied out of the couple's openness to life. As we said a while ago, they promise to share that life together. Therefore, they are open to life. They are open to being blessed with that love and that life that they share with one another. It will multiply and it will bring forth children, offspring. The intimate communion that they share with one another is founded on God's pure love and is ordered towards the good of the couple because they are at, why is it for the good of the couple? Because they are achieving their vocation. Diba? That's why you need to have that proper discernment, because when you enter into that marriage, you are actively fulfilling the vocation of God for you and for your family. That is why it is ordered towards the good of the couple. This is essential because it is the same loving communion that the couple will share together with their offspring. If that love is not present, how can they share that with their offspring? That is the difference between human beings and animals. When animals have offspring, there are natural instincts in which that are manifested in their nurturing and caring for their children, for their offspring, right? Those are natural instincts. But beyond that, when the animals reach a certain age, a certain stage in their development, it's already free for all. You know, you can go wherever you want, do as you please. The parents not having to nurture their children for the rest of their lives. But it's different with human beings because we have that intellect and free will, and we need to actively participate and make an effort in rearing our children, in sharing that loving communion that we shared with our spouse. That love is naturally ordered to be expressed by the couple for the generation and education of their children. It doesn't just end with the generation of offspring, with procreation. It doesn't just end there. It has to also continue on in life, in their upbringing, and in the education of their children. As I said, without that love, and if it is not the kind of love that comes from God Himself, which is naturally ordered towards one another, in perfect communion with one another, the natural gift of children and their responsible rearing and education cannot be established. In his Lumen Fidei, Pope Francis explains just how firm the bonds between people can be when God is present in their lives. He says that, first and foremost, the stable union of man and woman in marriage is born out of their love as a sign and presence of God's own love, and of the acknowledgement and acceptance of the goodness of sexual differentiation, whereby spouses can become one flesh and are enabled to give birth to a new life, a manifestation of the Creator's goodness, wisdom, and loving plan. Let us reflect on those words, no? Stable union of man and woman in marriage, born out of their love as a sign and presence of God's own love in them, and acknowledging and accepting the goodness of their sexual differences, because when they become one flesh, they can become one because of these sexual differences. That is why our differences, man and woman, is naturally ordered towards one another to become one flesh. And why is that important, to become one flesh? So that that love can enable giving birth to a new life, conceiving and giving birth to a new life. And this is how the goodness of God and the wisdom of his plan will be manifested. We are sharing with you these truths because we need to know this. And that is why anything else that deviates from this perfectly grand design of God's loving plan for man, for the family, it is unnatural. It is not how he created us to be. Such is the natural cycle of life. And God's love is multiplied for many generations to experience because of this perfect plan and design. He has put this in place because he wants many, many generations to experience the truth and the purity of his love. And what happens if we deviate from that plan? Many generations will suffer because they will not experience the truth, the purity, the innocence, and the goodness of God's love for them. Brothers and sisters, the promise of love is possible if we see the bigger picture. God's plan and design, more than just our own ideas and undertakings, no, beyond our own ambitions. This plan, because of its greatness, will sustain a couple's love for one another and will enable them to surrender, sacrifice, and give life to the ones whom they truly love. See, God has it all planned. He has laid it all out for us to experience if only we understood the truth of this plan. So how do we then define the family? Given all of these truths that we have shared with one another, how do we define the family? The family is the place of a profound solidarity between husbands and wives, between parents and children, and between the wealthy and the poor. As stated in the pastoral challenges to the family in the context of evangelization in the Synod of Bishops in 2013. That means there is a profound solidarity beyond imagination, beyond the understanding of human capacity between husbands and wives, between parents and children, and between the wealthy and the poor, because there is a natural tendency to help one another, to be one with one another, to be in solidarity with one another, because we are all God's children. Why do we experience that natural inclination to help one another, to extend a part of ourselves to one another? Because we are all God's children. And he has placed that in our fiber, no? That desire to be of help, to be of service to one another. The family is also where various generations come together and help one another grow wiser and harmonize personal rights with the other requirements of social life. This is the very foundation of society. The family is the very foundation of society, as indicated in Gaudium et Spes, no, of Saint John Paul II. It is where generations, relationships that across span time, across years, generations, still come together and still help one another become the best version of themselves. I teach personal development to senior high school students, and this is something that I really emphasize with them. No matter what your circumstances are, and no matter what the dynamics of your family are, you still need to be able to go back and accept these things, because if you are at peace, if you can actively find peace in those relationships that you have formed, these relationships, these attachments that you have formed in the family will help you become the best version of yourself, will help you as you grow and transition into an adult, into the person whom God has designed you to be. And the family is the domestic church because God's love, Christ's teachings, the life of the Spirit, the core values of faith, hope, and love are transmitted through the testimony of the parents without demanding results or losing hope. This without demanding results or losing hope came from Cardinal Juan Jose Omelia, the Archbishop of Barcelona. This is very telling. What is this explaining to us? It tells us that parents have that natural desire to transmit the faith to their children. We have to be able to impart something to them. But what we need to understand is that we cannot demand results. And if we we also cannot lose hope. I have a 12-year-old daughter. Her name is Clara. And when I talk to her and I call her my baby, even if she's already 12 years old, she says, I'm not a baby anymore, mommy. And I keep saying, yes, you're not a baby anymore, but you're still my baby and you will forever be my baby. No? So as long as there is that relationship between parent and child, then there is that desire to help one another, to be of assistance to one another. And when they grow up to become adults, it's not one way anymore. As they progress through life, it can become two-way. It can be beneficial for both the parent and the child. No? So these are the definitions of the family. But what has become of the family today? No? Let's look at the family today and what has become of it. First of all, the definition of marriage and its sanctity is destroyed. Why? What is very rampant today? Cohabitation. The exclusion of the idea of sacramental marriage in the plans of couples. No, they don't want to get married. They think that marriage is just going to be a struggle. Marriage is going to be a problem. And they don't want to be burdened by it. Same-sex unions that are unnaturally ordered because it deviates from the plan of God for the family, for marriage, for man and woman. Divorce, because of the divorce mentality, that mentality will tell couples that marriage is not permanent, and it cultivates a culture of non-commitment propagated on the presumption that marriage is a temporary bond. This is what happens when we introduce that. And this is the Philippine Conference on New Evangelization. And what I would like to emphasize and stress to all of you brothers and sisters is that the Philippines is the only country, aside from the Vatican, who has still not yet legalized divorce. And that does not mean we are falling behind. It means that we are the only one left to stand up to defend marriage, to defend the sanctity of marriage. So brothers and sisters, do not lose hope and fight for this. Fight for the sanctity of marriage. Another challenge is the natural order of life is threatened. The natural order that is from conception to natural death, it is threatened very much in today's society. And what I've seen is even among the youth, they see such things as abortion, artificial contraception as their right. And what does that tell us? This only says that we do not see the bigger picture, God's plan for us. We are only focusing on our own plans for ourselves, for our own lives. I know that is easier said than done. But that is why, if it is instilled in the children from the very beginning, that's why I said a while ago, marriage preparation starts from the very beginning, not just when you become engaged. Natural order of life is threatened because of abortion, artificial contraception, because of reproductive technologies that are very rampant now, even in the Philippines, that take the intimacy in marriage, take it out of marriage, and it misrepresents the unitive and procreative purpose and capacity of the couple in marriage. Why are reproductive technologies against the plan of God? Because of that. Because it takes the intimacy out of marriage and it misrepresents the unitive and procreative capacity of the couple in marriage. Another challenge is the rearing and upbringing of children is now distorted. Why? Because there are irregular unions that do not live out a testimony of God's love to children. There is a devaluing of the life and relationships within the family. There is more focus on gaining material wealth, achieving successful careers and professions, rather than on what is essential in order to transmit faith, hope, and love. That should be the number one priority of the family, to transmit faith, hope, and love. There will come a time when parents cannot anymore dictate to their children what decisions they need to make. We cannot be there to guide our children every step of the way. That is why we need to empower them to make the right decisions, the decisions that will help them achieve their purpose in life. And how can we do that? By first transmitting faith, hope, and love, values, our beliefs. No? What will be our guide as we live in this world? We cannot release them into the world without first doing this. And if we put more priority on material wealth, successful careers and professions, we miss out on the basic lessons that we need to tell them. And of course, another challenge is that there is non-commitment of marriages and families in their own participation in God's plan, Christ's mission here on earth. And as I said, this is what we are looking at now, because the families, the married couples do not see their part in God's plan. But brothers and sisters, there is hope. There is hope. We can do something. And how can we do that? We first need to welcome couples into active participation in the life of the church. We need to welcome them. Let's not shun them away. If they are going through crisis, difficulties, help them sort it out. Accompany them pastorally, because they need to see God's plan and design. And when you are in the middle of not, you will not be able to see it. If you are right in the middle of these problems, this crisis, you will not be able to see it. We need to help them shift their paradigm, no? Their mindset, so that they can see their part in God's plan. We need to emphasize the importance of transmitting the faith in the family through the personal testimony of parents. You know, if you are a parent, share your personal testimony, be a witness to other parents as well. If you're a married couple, then be a witness to them. And we also need to grow God's love for us by taking a more active role in learning about Christ's teachings. We first need to learn, and then passing these on to our children, no? So that we are passing on what is essential, what is true, and so that the truth about His love is not watered down. Instead, it is multiplied and it is enriched even more. Let us take a more active role. Let us learn the teachings of Christ, and let us be intentional in passing on these teachings, the truth about God's love, to our children, and that making sure that it is not watered down, and it is more, instead it is more enriched. Instead, it grows. So what is the family's actual participation in Christ's mission? The family's participation in Christ's mission should be the main objective of the family ministry. For all of us who are in the family ministry, let us not focus too much on the programs. These programs are not the end. They are just a means to an end. And the end goal is for the family to actually participate in the mission of Christ, in the mission of the church. As God created us, life is precious, and it is appreciated and protected through the natural developmental cycle of human life. So the family ministry should focus on that, on emphasizing that life is precious and life is appreciated more and protected through the natural developmental cycle of the human being. The way by which we can help the family participate in the mission of Christ through his church is not, as I said, by looking at the programs or focusing on them too much. As I said earlier, this is simply the means to an end. The family and life ministry can be of great help by having a renewed focus on the relationships that are being formed by the couples and on the personal experience and fellowship of one another, in order that this may be naturally directed towards a renewed experience of God's love in their marriage and towards the rearing and upbringing of their children. Wow, that's hard to swallow. Very big words, no? Renewed focus on the relationships that are being formed by the couples, because these harmonious relationships are what will be their testimonies of love to their children, their personal experience and their fellowship with one another, and directing their love towards one another towards a renewed experience of God's love and making it real in their families. What do we need to do? Let us take a step back and try to look at our ministry as a means towards taking part in God's design. Let us refocus. Where are we headed? Are we just filling ourselves with programs, with activities, and not looking at the objectives, the vision for each of these activities and the end goal? They should all work towards that end goal. And let us create a synergy. Let us create synergy by not just focusing on our own vision of the ministry in our parish, but in essentially creating better marriages and better family life experiences. Instead of just waiting for couples to decide to marry and preparing them for marriage to their pre-Cana formation, let us actively campaign for vocations among the single professionals so that people may actively discern for God's purpose for them, no matter what stage they are in their lives. Let us help children and the youth by providing avenues for which the teachings of Christ can be reinforced. Nowadays, parents are having a hard time passing on the lessons, no? So we need to help them by reinforcing these. First, explaining to them that they are the primary teachers of their children, and then what is learned in church during the Sunday masses through catechism. Not everybody is able to attend catechism, no? So reinforcing that, being creative and coming up with ways to reinforce the teachings of Christ. Let us prepare parents and assist them in their journey, since not all are given the same opportunities, nor is everyone given the same experience of faith. Let us synergize with one another in addressing the pressing concerns of today. What are the pressing concerns of today? Pornography, abuse of digital media, mental health concerns, the disruption of the values of marriage and family life, as we explained earlier. Amidst the challenges of marriage and family life, let us provide a refuge for all members of the family, that they may actively take part in God's grand design for them, individually and as a unit. So if I may be so bold and propose to the family ministry to intentionally synergize with the vocations ministry, the children's ministry, the youth ministry, the ministry for single professionals. Synergize. Don't just work on your programs independently of each other. Do not compete with one another. There should be synergy. Unite your efforts with one another, because all of these programs, as I said again, are all just a means to an end. And the end is for each and every marriage and family to see their part in God's plan and design for them. This is my family. We're just a small family. Of course, we are still actively praying for additional members of the family. My husband is JC, and that's me in the middle, and that's my daughter, Clara. Okay, I put pictures of us celebrating our giftedness. No, JC we met in mission work. Okay, I used to be a full-time lay missionary. I just recently retired after about 16 years of missionary work My husband is still a full-time lay missionary. He is in the special events of our missionary community, the Missionary Families of Christ, and is also serving in the No One in Need movement, which is the Live Full pillar of the Live Christ, Share Christ mission. LCSC's work with the poor. Clara is in grade 7 in the School of the Holy Spirit of Quezon City. We are a small family, but every day we pray for God's blessings to multiply in us and through us. We struggle through life. We have our own difficulties. I'm not going to cry. We have our own share of pain and suffering. We have lost 3 children through miscarriages, and we are still blessed despite all of our struggles. No? Why? Because I feel that Tracy and I met in mission. Both our parents were part of community life. They became members of Couples for Christ when we were both young. Of course, we didn't know each other yet back then. We joined community as youth in 1993. And we grew in this kind of environment. And being in community, in this community life, has helped us immensely, because it is not, our parents also needed accompaniment. Our parents also needed help. And the activities in the community, in the family ministries of the community, now the sections of Missionary Families of Christ, helped us because it was geared towards the total plan and design of God. And now we are trying our best to raise our daughter in that kind of environment as well. She attends liturgical Bible study every week, and she knows the gospel more than us when we attend mass on Sundays. We serve in the parish and we expose her to that kind of environment because we want her to see beyond what the world will show her. And the world will show her a lot of different things. And the only way that we can protect her from this is by actively taking part in her education and not just leaving it to the school, by engaging her in discussions that will help her think critically and help her become creative, celebrate the giftedness that God has blessed her with. Brothers and sisters, according to St. John Paul II in his Familiaris Consortium, we celebrated this feast day yesterday. The future of humanity passes by way of the family. We are just so happy that we can share in God's plan by being a missionary family of Christ. We are humbled each time we struggle. Community life is not that perfect. Believe me, we have seen so much. So many struggles. We have seen so many errors, so many flaws, not just in ourselves, but in the relationships that we have, the people around us. We have seen so many. But human beings are not perfect. Only God is. And by focusing on the perfect plan of God and the perfect love of God, it motivates us to keep going, because we are taking part in the plan of God for the future of humanity to pass by way of our family. Sister Lucia of Fatima, one of the shepherd children, said that the final battle between the Lord and the reign of Satan will be about marriage and the family. What does this mean? This means that we are blessed because we are at the forefront of the final battle. As family and life ministers, let us have this mindset that we are frontliners in this battle. And it is important that we see why. Why? Because we are blessed. No? Because we are this battle, we are participating actively already. Because as family and life ministers, we are at the forefront, and we need to share the responsibility to go back to the plan of God and to help create a world that sees, promotes, and defends all that is true, good, and beautiful. In issues that destroy the definition and sanctity of marriage, divorce, cohabitation, irregular unions, abortion, the victims in the long run are the families themselves. In issues that destroy the natural conception and upbringing of the offspring, population control, contraceptive mentality, abortion, the victims are the children. In issues that devalue the dignity of life, suicide, euthanasia, and an end of life culture where people think that they are free to take lives in their own hands, the victim is life itself. The families, the children, life, these are all precious gifts of God to each and every one of us. We need to see the truth, the goodness, and the beauty about God's love in all of these gifts. The life that we live and that He has gifted us with, and the world that He has created for us to journey on towards eternal happiness. Brothers and sisters, may we pray for this clarity of our vision, that we will not focus on the programs, we will not focus on our own successes, but we will help these families that are under our care. We will help everyone to see our part and our participation in God's great plan. Family is love. It is life-giving because it is born out of God's love. It is an offering because it is an example and a manifestation of Christ's selflessness and sacrifice for each and every one of us. It is a place where we learn values guided by the gifts of the Spirit. And it is always an opportunity to evangelize. Every day is a chance to share that love, to share that life, and to share that spirit to others. Brothers and sisters, my prayer for each and every one of us is that we see our part first, our role in participating in God's mission, God's love, Christ's mission here on earth, and may we pass that on. May we share that with each and every couple preparing to get married, every parent, and every child, every young person, every single professional. May we all pass on that vision, that mindset of being part of God's grand design and actively making an effort to fulfill our role, our responsibility, and our purpose. Thank you very much, everybody. May God bless us all.